Today we're going to talk about section 7.3, which we're going to be using the trigonometric ratios that we talked about yesterday to find the missing side of a triangle. Okay? And there is going to be a quiz after this section. So to use trig to find missing sides of a right triangle, we're going to set up an equation using that SOHCAHTOA that we had talked about yesterday. Okay? And then again, we're just going to have two fractions set equal to each other so we can just cross multiply and solve. So let's take a look. And we want to find the value of the variable to the nearest hundredth. So again, in relation to 57, I have to decide what sides I have. Do I have the opposite, adjacent, or the hypotenuse? So again, the side directly opposite your right angle is always your hypotenuse. So I have the hypotenuse, and 57 is the angle that we're talking about here, and that y is directly opposite that. So I have the opposite side and the hypotenuse. So I need the O and the H. O and the H is part of your sine. So we're going to say that the sine of 57 equals the side opposite, which is y, over your hypotenuse, which is 15. Okay, and again, we're going to cross multiply and solve here. So this is the only time I'm going to actually set up the two fractions, but I'm just going to put that over 1, so I have two fractions set equal to each other. So every single time you can always put that one side over 1, and then we're just cross multiplying and solving. Okay, and again, I'm just going to write it out at first. I'm not going to actually go into my calculator. Y times 1 is just y, and then I'm going to do 15 times the sine of 57. So literally all I'm going to do inside my calculator is 15 sine of 57. Okay, do you have to press the multiplication key? No. Can you press the multiplication key? Absolutely. You can also use a set of parentheses. It doesn't matter. Again, just please make sure that you're playing along and use your calculator to make sure that you get the same answer, because again, it's obviously going to change your answer if it comes time for the quiz or the test. Again, if you're using your cell phone, especially the iPhone, open up your calculator, turn your calculator to portrait, and again, the scientific functions will come up. And again, the only way that the scientific functions are going to come up is if you have your screen lock off. The screen lock has to be off for the calculator to change into the scientific calculator. Okay? And it's your cell phone is automatically in degrees, so we don't have to worry about that. But let's go into the calculator here. And again, literally, I'm just going to make sure that this is in degrees because this tends to kick itself out sometimes. Okay, so all I'm going to do is enter the 15 times the sine of 57 and just hit enter. And there's my answer. So let's round here to this nearest hundredth, I believe that said. So we're going to do 2 spots after the decimal. So this is going to be 12.58. Again, play along. Make sure you're getting the same answers. This is going to be the only time that I'm going into the calculator to show you actually the calculations just to save time. So just make sure you're getting the same answers that I am as we go through this video. So back in here, and again, y was 12.58 to the nearest hundredth. Okay, for part B, this time I have 63. So again, in relation to 63, I need to know what x and 16 are. Again, 16 is directly opposite your right angle, so that's going to be your hypotenuse. And in relation to 63, x is right next to that 63, which is going to make that the adjacent side. And again, when I'm looking at SOHCAHTOA, so now I need the adjacent and the hypotenuse. That's going to be the cosine. So I'm going to have the cosine of 63 equals the side adjacent, which in this case is x, over my hypotenuse, which is 16. Okay, so again, when I cross multiply, I'm going to have x equals 16 times the cosine of 63. And again, when you chuck that into the calculator and round to the nearest hundredth, you should end up with an answer of 7.26. Okay, for C, we have this angle 40 here. Again, I'll write my SOHCAHTOA across the top. Okay, and then with relation to 40, 32 is going to be directly opposite that, and x is right next to it, so it's going to be the adjacent. So I have opposite and adjacent, so this time we're going to have the tangent. So I'm going to have the tangent of 40 equals the side opposite, which is 32, over the side adjacent, which in this case is x. So this time when I cross multiply, I'll put this one over 1 just because it's a little bit different. When we cross multiply here, you're going to have 32 equals x times the tangent of 40. I need to get that x by itself. Right now, you're technically multiplying x times the tangent of 40. The opposite of multiplying by the tan of 40 is to divide by the tan of 40. So again, inside the calculator, you're just doing 32 divided by tan 40, enter. Okay, and when you do that, again, on this side, those will cancel. So you're just going to be left with x equals 38.14. For part D, again, we have everything in relation to our 50 here. Again, let me write SOHCAHTOA. The more times you write it, the more likely you are to remember it. And again, the easier it's going to be to use. So in relation to 50, that 123 is directly opposite the 50. And the x, be careful, that is not adjacent. It can't be adjacent because it's the side across from your right angle. It has to be the hypotenuse. So I have the opposite and the hypotenuse. So again, we're going to be using the sine. So the sine of 50 equals the side opposite is 123 and my hypotenuse is x. So again, when I cross multiply here, I'm going to have x times the sine of 50 equals 123. Again, the opposite of multiplying by the sine of 50 is to divide by the sine of 50. Again, those will cancel. And 123 divided by the sine of 50 should give you an answer of 160.57. Okay. So I'm given triangle ABC. We want to find the value of x to the nearest hundredth. So let's concentrate on x first. Change my thing. So the angle that I have here is this angle 30. Okay, and I have x, and I can't have y inside my, can't have x and y inside my first equation. So I'm going to concentrate on the x and the 24 first in order to find that value of x there. So in relation to 30, again, 24. That's my hypotenuse, okay, directly opposite my right angle. And 30, x is adjacent to 30. So again, we're going to have our adjacent and our hypotenuse. SOHCAHTOA. So I have adjacent and hypotenuse. That's going to be my cosine. So we're going to do the cosine of 30. The side adjacent is x. The side opposite is 24. And again, when I cross multiply, I'm going to have 24 times the cosine of 30 equals x. Okay, so again, x is by itself. So literally all I'm doing is going into the calculator and doing 24 times the cosine of 30. And when you hit enter, and again, round to the nearest hundredth, 2 spots after the decimal, you should get an answer of 20.78. Okay, for part B, we want to find the value of y. Okay, so this time I am going to concentrate still with that 24, and now I'm going to concentrate on the y and that angle. So again, in relation to 30 this time, hypotenuse isn't going to change, but now that y is going to be the side directly opposite. So this time I have the opposite on the hypotenuse, which means we're going to use the sine. So we're going to do the sine of 30. The side opposite this time is y, and the hypotenuse is 24. So again, when I cross multiply, I'm going to have 24 times the sine of 30 equals y. So again, just plug that into the calculator, and when you do that, you should be able to get an answer of 12. Okay. Part C says, what other method could have been used to find y? Well, once I know that this side was 20.78, now I have 2 sides of a right triangle and I'm only missing the third. You also could have used the Pythagorean theorem. All right, so the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So you could have solved the same way to get this 12 right here. Okay, so again, you would just put 24 in for C and then put the 20.78 for either A or B, and then just solve, and you would have come up with the same exact answer. Okay, 2 more problems here. Again, now these are going to be word problems, but they're going to be done the same exact way that the previous problems were. So a point on the ground that is 47 feet from the base of the tree makes an angle of 35 degrees with the top of the tree. What is the height of the tree to the nearest tenth of a foot? So when I look at my picture, everything's labeled for me. Okay, so again, we're talking about in relation to that 35 degrees. That's going to be my side directly opposite, and 47 is going to be my side that's adjacent. So SOHCAHTOA. Okay, I have opposite and adjacent. So when I'm dealing with opposite and adjacent, that's going to be the tangent. So we're going to have the tangent of 35 equals the side opposite, which is x, and my side adjacent, which is 47. Cross multiply, I'm going to have 47 times the tangent of 35 is going to equal x. And again, just chuck that into the calculator. Nearest tenth of a foot is 1 spot after the decimal. So when you round appropriately, you should get an answer of 32.9. Again, please make sure that you are playing along in your calculator and that you are getting those same answers. Hey, when it comes time to take the test, I'm not going to answer any questions about how to do something inside the calculator. Obviously, tomorrow in class, if you have a question, I'm obviously going to answer it. But on the test itself, the quiz itself, I'm not answering questions about how to use the calculator. Okay, and our last one. We have an airplane climbs at an angle of 13 degrees with the ground. What is the distance it has traveled to the nearest hundredth of the foot when it is attained an altitude of 400 feet? So again, we just need to kind of draw a picture of what's going on here. Okay, we're inside this SOHCAHTOA section, okay, which means no matter what, I have to end up having a right angle, okay, a right triangle. So if you want, you can even just start with the right triangle. Okay, and again, this is going to be your ground right here. Altitude is always perpendicular, so this is going to be your height. Okay, and here is your plane. Kind of looks like a shark in the sky, but there's your plane. Okay, so again, it says what is the distance that the plane has traveled. So the distance the plane has traveled, the plane didn't go from here straight up. Okay, it went from here and then went up to here. So that's the distance the plane has traveled. So I'm going to call that x. Okay, to the nearest hundredth of a foot when it's attained an altitude of 400 feet. So there's going to be my 400 feet. Okay, the other thing I need is my angle. It climbs at an angle of 13 degrees with the ground. So the plane with the ground, that's going to be this angle right there, which is going to be 13. Okay, so with relation to that 13, that side is directly opposite, and x is your hypotenuse. So we're going to, again, if I rewrite SOHCAHTOA one more time, I have the opposite and the hypotenuse, so I'm using the sine. So the sine of 13 is going to be opposite, which is 400, over your hypotenuse, which is x. Cross multiply. X times the sine of 13 is going to equal 400. In this case, x is not by itself, so we'll divide both sides by the sine of 13, and x should equal 1,778.16. Again, it said to the nearest hundredth. Hundredth is 2 spots after the decimal, so that's why I did the 0.16 at the end there.